Hi, my name is Wayne Hall, and I'm the creator of the Wayne's Comics podcast, as well as the writer of a weekly column on comic book industry called Comics Portal. And I also write reviews, and it's all on Majorspoilers.com. And I thought what I would do in this segment, which I kind of call for the moment Indie Spotlight, is talk about what is known as indie comics. Of course, what is an indie comic? Indie is short for independent, and independent means that they're not published through a main comics company like DC, Marvel, or even Image. So what happens is there's a creator who's usually either the writer or the artist or both, and they get together and come up with a concept, and they publish comics on their own, which is certainly possible today thanks to computers and the availability of printing and things like that, as well as digital versions of comics. What they'll do is a team will come together. It usually includes letterers and the other parts of it. I'll have to be there. People like me, who I'm the editor of one of them. It's called Stabby Bunny, and it started out as an independent comic. It was on its own. Then it was picked up by Scout Comics. So it's one of those things. That's kind of what every indie comic, at least many of them, want to become. Is they want to be able to get a wider berth and be seen by more people. So they often are picked up by companies, especially if they're really good ones, and they get sent out through Diamond, and things are move along, and you get a wider audience that way. Sometimes they even get picked up like a solar flare and get optioned for either television or movie or things like that. So there's all kinds of possibilities when it comes to indie comics. They don't necessarily have to stay that way, and a lot of the creators move on to go and work for DC or Marvel, like several of them that come to mind right away. There's Cullen Bunn, who started out doing Sixth Gun, and he moved on. Now he's one of the high-ranking writers of horror and things like that. So just because it's an indie comic doesn't mean that it's not one you shouldn't pay attention to. You might be reading the future of some comics that are coming along. So an indie comic is something that I like to do. When I go to conventions, I often go around to tables, Artist Alley or Small Press, and see the books that are there and see if some of them are worth talking about and promoting on the podcast. So I do that quite a bit. I spend a lot of time investigating indie comics, so that's why I feel like I can talk about these pretty well. So I thought what I would do in this first segment, I would deal specifically with one of my very favorites, and it's Star Power. This is one of the one of the indie comics that has a lot of legs to them, as they like to say. They're actually in the middle of their sixth, at least the way I count it, their sixth story. Every time they get through with a complete story, they put it out at like this in the graphic novel format. And they self publish. The way I came across Star Power was I was at AwesomeCon in Washington, D.C., and I saw the table there with the artist whose name is Garth Graham, and I bought the first three because I liked them. One of the things that I always say about comics is that the art attracts attention first, and it's a story that keeps you coming back. The marriage of those two is the ideal thing. But the art got my attention, and of course, I'm a big science fiction guy, so I love the sci fi aspect of it. So I picked up the book. I took them with me. I didn't get to read them while I was in Washington. The next week we were in Dallas for a convention. And I had them with me, and I read them on a Friday night. When I got through reading the first three volumes, I was so enamored with them, I immediately wrote to them and asked if I could interview them. And by the way, the writer's name is Michael Terracciano, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. One of the bad things about comics is they don't have pronunciation guides for people's names. So we're left on our own to kind of try to figure out how to pronounce these things. So that's where we're at with that. Anyway, I spoke with them, I interviewed them, and this is an ongoing series. They've got five of these books out so far. Like I said, they're in the middle of the sixth. Each one of these has a very different story from the others. This one is her origin story, and that's Danica. And I'll give the description of the series in just a minute. But each one has a very different kind of story. Right now, they're in the middle of all things of a galactic crime drama. They've had a war story. They've had a genetic mystery story. They've had all different kinds of things, and it's always something different. and they never repeat themselves. But they do have a recurring cast, which is a lot of fun. There's a lot of aliens and humans mixed in. They're located at what's called Space Station Sanctuary 6. And let me read what the description of the book is, right from the back of of the book. It says, "One woman stands vigilant against the void." And right away, let me say that I'm always attracted to strong female leads because we've had male leads for decades now, and we've pretty much run the gamut as far as male leads go. Women lead characters, I think, on the other hand, are largely unexplored. So there's a lot to be done with female leads, and I'm really happy when they do these kinds of things. And Danica is a very strong character here. It says Danica Maris is an assistant astronomer on Space Station Sanctuary 6 until she is mysteriously chosen to wield the cosmic energy known as the star power. The light of the star powered sentinels has returned, but she is shining alone. An ancient enemy has emerged from the ruins of the old galactic empire to extinguish the star power and enslave the Millennium Federation. Now the last star powered sentinel must stand against the approaching darkness and be a light in the void. One of the things I feel about this book is that it is such a high quality that I think DC, Marvel, or Image would be glad to have this because I think it outshines many of the books that are out today. Almost all of them, I feel, because this is just the word I would like to use to describe it is professional. It's extremely professionally done. And this is just such a tremendous series, especially if you like science fiction like I do. Now, we're going to be grading these good things, so let me start doing that so I get those things done correctly. The first one is writing, and I have to give this book, honestly, I could be talking about all of them, and I might go through other ones later on, but I thought best to start at the beginning. The writing for me is an A grade. It does a lot of good things. It introduces characters, both aliens and human. It introduces the situation. We meet the bad guys who are called the Centillions. They have a countess who's the bad lady. It's interesting, the female versus female dynamic. I think it's kind of fun. And that's going on. We get a lot of introduction. It's all done extremely well. As far as the script goes, it's very fast paced. Things move quite along at a very good pace, and the dialogue doesn't bog down. If there's dialogue going on, it's held to a minimum, and it keeps you interested in what the story is, and it explains things as they go along. So I think the writing deserves an A grade. And now we move on to art. And again, I have to say that the art deserves an A grade as well. It's the characters are all good, even when they're alien. There's some quasi-human characteristics so that we can get to understand them. One of them has a great big mustache, looks like. That's part of his alien. The race has all these great big mustaches, and the way that they're portrayed reveals a lot about their character. So I really think the artwork is really well done. It's very sharp. You know who is who. You know who's talking to who and who's doing things to who. I usually grade art on two levels. I say that it's important to have facial characteristics that reveal what the character is thinking or feeling, and that's done extremely well in here. Even though they're aliens, you'll often get that. You can see right on the cover this lady who's the countess. You can tell she's not a happy person right off the bat. You get that right away. And I also talk about battle sequences because action sequences are important to communicate the story. And those are extremely well done in here. She comes against the Void Angels, is the name of the group that are working for the Centillions. And what's interesting is, even though she's got all this power, she still wants to talk through any kinds of problems, which is a good thing for the character. It's something a little different. And so I think the art is good. I think the movements are great. I think the facial expressions, like I said, are tremendous. I would say the art is really great. And so, again, I think this is an A grade. The lettering is the next one. And the lettering, I would give a B grade. I think that it's done very well. There's a couple places where I thought it covered up the art a little bit that I didn't like. So, as much as I thought they did a great job with it, I think that there were a couple places I could see a little bit of improvement. First one, first one that you're going to have some bumps and bruises along the way, and I think that they could have done a little better as far as like not covering up some of the great art. Literary merit. This is it's very reminiscent. At one place on the back here, in fact, they say Star Trek, Star Wars, Guardians of the Galaxy, The Fifth Element, Battlestar Galactica, Babylon 5, Firefly. Star power deserves to be mentioned in the same breath with all of them. So, as far as literary merit, is this something that will stand up to the test of time? They've been doing this since 2013, and they're still going strong. Every Monday they release a new page. I think this is a kind of a book that if you like science fiction, ought to be in with all those ones that have just been mentioned. It's just a great, great book. It is such a interesting story, well done. One of the things I noticed as I was going back through this was that we don't get the origin of the star power. I mean, it comes is given to Danica, but what the star power actually is. Now she gets a little helper by the name of Mitch, which is what she thinks is a star, and she names it Mitch. Mitch actually turns out to be a little helper star that helps her along the way and gives her information that she needs. I think that this is a very strong story, that the characters are well developed and they're still growing. And so I think, as far as literary merit, I would have to give this one an A. It's very well done, well told. It doesn't bore, but at the same time, it's not like a video game. It's not rushing past everything. Now, the next one is fun factor. And, maybe it's just me that I happen to really love this book and I think it's so well done, but I give this an A. There's enough action and enough things going on. The characters are enough well developed that you start to care about them, and so you really enjoy what's going on. For me, it's what they call a page turner. I got to know what the characters are saying and doing, so I have to turn the page to find out what's going on right away. So that to me indicates it's a lot of fun. It's a strong read that I think this could almost be an all ages book. It's that good. It's a lot of fun to read, and this needs to be on sci-fi, like it really does. Then the overall grade, because so many of them are A's, I would have to give this an A. As you know, if you're looking for a book, and particularly you're interested in science fiction, and some people differentiate that from sci-fi, this book I think is one that you should be checking out. The way that you get a hold of this book, it is sold through Comixology. It's called Star Power. If you go to starpowercomic.com, there's a store there that you go. It's not, they don't do it themselves. It's somebody else that sells the books for them. But you can access the books there. An interesting little tidbit about this book is that the fan base is really devoted, and I can tell you why I know that. Uh, I became a fan, and I always like to get hardcovers of books I particularly like. I didn't get the hardcover when it started of the first one. I got a trade paperbacks to get involved with the series. And so I ended up now, I'm still at this day looking for one of these in hardcover. And everybody who bought them, nobody wants to sell them. I've tried several places, eBay and other places, trying to find a hardcover. If somebody knows a hardcover, let me know, because I want to have a hardcover of the first one. The other ones are available in hardcover pretty easily, but this one I'd love to have because I just think it's a terrific book. If you like female leads, if you like action adventure, if you enjoy science fiction, I think this book is going to be one that you really will enjoy. So there are, like I said, they're already up to the sixth volume, and I am anxiously awaiting for every Monday because a new page comes out every Monday, and I am anxious to see what's going on. I mean, that the crime drama's got me hooked. So, Star Power is a book I highly recommend. I would definitely get to it. And again, starpowercomic.com. Look on Comixology. If you go to conventions, when they start back up, you'll probably see this book in several of them. You can go to the website and they'll tell you where they're going to be. So I think I started off with a strong one. Like I said, this is a great book that I think you should really have, particularly if you enjoy the things I've been talking about. Next week we'll do some more, and I'll give grades on the books as I go through, and we'll explore the indie universes as we go along. So until next time, keep reading your comics.